How is everybody doing? Welcome to Geeks Between Worlds. I am Oscar Lucio, and today we're going to be talking about Square Enix's latest blog post, some screenshots, and I'm going to be reading some viewer responses that I got back from my last video. The Square Enix blog post that I'll be referring to today can be found in the description below. Before we get into that blog post, let's read some of the viewer responses that I got from the 3 questions that I asked in my last video. Previously, I put out a sales and critical reception prediction update video, and I asked you 3 questions at the end. The first question was, how many copies do you think that Final Fantasy VII Remake would sell? The second question was, what type of review scores do you think the game will get? The third question was, when do you think we will get news on Part 2 or the continuation of Final Fantasy VII Remake? And now with this blog post, we do actually have news of the continuation of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but let's get into these reader responses. Our first comment that we're going to read lays it out pretty simple. It's 13 Reezy says that it will sell 6 to 10 million copies. It's going to receive 8s or 9s. And if the first part comes out March, probably at E3 we get an announcement, and November with PS5, hopefully we get part 2. That would be awesome. Just think if Final Fantasy VII Part 2 was in the launch window or in the launch lineup. That would be fucking insane. Now that's probably not going to happen, but I really appreciate this comment because I would love that to happen. Our next comment comes from Keith Blitzka. Thank you for the response. He says, good video. Yes, timing and position could not be better. And they need to capitalize with the demo and obviously marketing campaign blitz. I think it surpasses Final Fantasy XV quite easily, just not sure of the 20 million number. We shall see. So to digest that, yes, they need to make that demo happen. I really think that they are going to announce it at the Game Awards. It would just be too perfect. And yes, Square Enix of course is going to have a big commercial push for this game. Most recently, they have a commercial with Tom Holland and Hannibal Buress for Final Fantasy XIV, and you best believe Final Fantasy VII is going to get that same big treatment. Final Fantasy XV is sitting at about 8.4 million units, and I think that is going to be a no-brainer sales goal for this game. Then at the end, Keith said that he doesn't think that it could hit the 20 million sales mark that I mentioned last time. I just like to clear something up. A lot of people in the comments mentioned the 20 million sales mark that I talked about in the video. Now this was a situation that I was explaining that could only happen if this game sells about 15 million copies on its own and then it were to go to a free offering like PlayStation Plus. I don't think that it could sell 20 million on its own. I really think that it needs to get into people's hands at a real low price or for a service fee, and that could definitely happen in this day and age with how gaming is going. So especially to push other parts of the game, we might get this part 1 free down the line in the next 4 to 5 years. You never know. Next response is from Haley Scully. She's always given us awesome feedback, so thank you for that. She says, I agree with you that FF7 could easily reach 15 to 20 million copies. This seems like it would be an excellent game, and I'm hoping it'll perform that well. A lot of the previous competition is gone now though, so that'll certainly help. And a demo announcement would be amazing. You're right, that would create so much hype. Great video. I'm glad you're feeling that way, Haley. I really think that if there's going to be any Final Fantasy game that hits that 15 to 20 million mark, it is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now that competition is gone, it will certainly help out a lot for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I talked about that previously in my last video. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out now. But now this really does leave a big window of opportunity for Final Fantasy VII Remake to just come in there and be the first big exclusive AAA game of 2020. Our next response comes from It's Me, and he has 2 responses. I'm going to read them both because I think they're important to bring up. People still harping on this part 1 nonsense that's not stated on the cover. It doesn't need to. FF7R will be a complete game with a complete story. Did God of War on PS2 say part 1? Did Lord of the Rings say part 1 when it first came out? They're complete stories on their own that's part of an overarching whole story. To begin, I completely agree with you. I could care less if this says part 1, part 2, part all of them, the whole game, none of the game, a little slice of the game. It could say whatever the hell it wants to. I'm purchasing this game. I also believe that this will be a full game. I'm at least expecting 30 hours, and I think that is doable, and I hope that is easily reached in the story. And I'm expecting around 40 to 50 hours total playtime just doing everything else in the game. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I do think that this is different than God of War. Those were full games that came out that had sequels, as we thought that those stories ended at the end of the game, or we expected a sequel later on after years of development. Final Fantasy VII was a complete game that is now being broken up into parts, so there is a little bit of difference there, but I understand what you're saying. Then his comment reads, sales, it'll sell around 12 million in 3 months, 9.1 million were sold of the original FF7, not including the modern re-releases, so 9.1 million plus the newcomers. I think 12 million sounds about right, and 15 million after the launch of PS5 and or PC releases. If FF7R is a proper length of 20 to 30 hours of gameplay worth, I'd say the game will rate around 90 to 92. I think personally the game would rate near perfect 100, but disgruntled fans and journalists will bring the score influence down. That being said, I don't trust Metacritic or OpenCritic, never will. Lastly, official Part 2 news will come most likely in 2022. Give Part 1 a year to breathe and to have any DLC breathe as well. Since the FF7R series will be treated like a mainline Final Fantasy entry, I think 2 years is plenty of time to begin road mapping to Part 2. Now, you said a whole bunch, it's me. Thank you for that awesome, long response. If it sells 12 million in 3 months, we got a fucking hot cake. We got a killer game. 12 million in 3 months, that is awesome. I mean, we're saying that that is good as like a really big like IP of Star Wars or something. That is awesome numbers. I really hope that we hit 12 million, because that means that we hit like maximum critical success, right? Like that means that people are probably giving it 9s and 10s. It is getting that 92 on Metacritic or 90, and then we will be all basking in Final Fantasy VII Remake heaven. That's a great fact. I knew around 14 million were sold after all the re-releases of FF7, the original version, so it's nice to know that before all of those re-releases it sold 9.1 million. Thank you for that fact. Then you bring up how some disgruntled journalists may influence the score, and I agree with that. You know what? Every single game that's coming out, it seems like is getting either like 6s or 10s. You know what I mean? That's what November of 2019 was. It was like, oh, this game is a 6 and it's a 10 from all these different outlets, and we just can't trust reviews anymore. So that's okay. That's okay if you don't want to trust OpenCritic or Metacritic, because you know what? You should just like what you like and invest in that if you want to by buying those games, buying entertainment, and buying whatever you want. Then you said that we'll hear news about the next entry in 2022. Giving the game some time to breathe, giving the DLC to breathe, that all sounded awesome, and I really agree with that. Let that roadmap really plan out a really good game, something that they build from the ground up again, something that they really love and nurture into a good product. That's something that I definitely agree with. But now let's get into that blog post, because we're about to turn all of this shit on its head. Thank you for the responses. I really appreciate everybody that commented. We got a lot of comments. I only read about like 4 or 5 on this video today, so I really appreciate it. But we got so much awesome news, I just want to get to it. If you are as hyped about Final Fantasy VII Remake like me, then you should go and read this yourself. This is an awesome article. It is titled Introducing the Final Fantasy VII Remake Development Team. I highly suggest you read it. I'm going to take out some key points in it today, about 3 or 4 key points that I want to talk about, but there is a lot to read. While I go over some of this article, I'll be putting up the brand new screenshots, so go ahead, check them out while I read some of this, and just marvel at what this game is going to be. I am super excited. Let's get to the big quote of the article, something that went like wildfire on the internet today, and that is Nomura's comments. Nomura says a lot in this article, multiple things about how this project began, goes back to the Advent Children days, where it is now the density of Midgar, but at the very, very end, he drops a huge bombshell. Quoting this article, we've already begun working on the next one as well, but I'm confident that playing through this title will expand your expectations just like the world that extends beyond Midgar. Until next time. I just asked when we were going to get news on the continuation of this series, and he literally drops it the next week like it's no big deal. I'm over here just reading this on my phone like, okay, dropping this knowledge on a Monday. Him and Square Enix are notorious for working on projects crazy early, so this isn't a shocker to me. But really, when I'm reading this, the key takeaway is they're very confident in their product. Now, obviously, I'm in the boat that they're going to make these parts no matter what, and they're probably going to sell great no matter what. So, I mean, them already working on part 2 just makes sense in a business perspective. I think their intentions are to make a really great game that pleases fans, but in all honesty, leaves a legacy for what Square Enix is as a company and for what they did for this video game industry. And then supporting a comment from earlier, if this game is already being worked on, just think if it is a PlayStation launch window title. That would just be amazing. Within the first year or first 2 years of PlayStation 5, I am just all in on this idea now. So fans rejoice, we finally have confirmation, we already know that they're working on it, and if we put a timetable on it, it's going to definitely be within the next 4 to 5 years, I'd say, so get hyped. Now there is a couple more things that I want to bring up in this blog post, something that's slightly worrisome and something that drops a big hint about the Honeybee Inn. Now the quote that could worry you, I'm going to get that out of the way. Let's see what you think after I read this. Now as I quote this from this article, Kazushige Nojima, I hope I didn't butcher that, says the following. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, there will be much less room for player imagination. This fact will probably change the feel of the story considerably. People who know the original might not quite know how to take it. Such is the fear that I have, but I also have conviction. It should be possible to feel a much deeper connection to Cloud as you join alongside him. It would be amazing if you could feel that fiery flame together with him. Now, depending on how you perceive this could be a red flag to you. Now, most importantly, what I really think that he is saying is I think that back in the day when we played Final Fantasy VII, it did take a lot of imagination to fully realize that world. That means that a lot of people played this game and they probably have their own personal memories tied to their imaginations. So he's hoping that once you get into this world, it's not too different than what you imagined as a younger kid growing up, or if you just played the game recently. But if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan like me, you've been waiting to play a game like this since you watched Advent Children, since you watched that movie and said, man, I wish I play a game that is like what I'm watching right now. Now the second to last thing that I'm going to mention in this blog post, I think may be the most important. I'll leave it up to you. Motomu Toriyama, the co-director of scenario design, said this in the interview. We took care to remake not only the main characters, but also characters like Johnny and the Shinra middle manager who I created back then. Please keep your eye out to see how they make their new appearances. Additionally, when remaking the Honeybee Inn at the Wall Market, we revived it as a pantheon of entertainment, which couldn't be realized back then. Here, the scene that many of you have been eager to see where Cloud disguises himself. Please enjoy. There are two reasons why I think this hint about the Honeybee Inn is important. First off, I think the Honeybee Inn may be this game's gold saucer. Since Final Fantasy VII Remake is split into parts and we won't be getting the gold saucer in the first part, then it makes sense that maybe this is our hub to play arcade games and to spend that virtual money to get cool accessories and items and weapons through the mini games that are known in Final Fantasy VII. Now, a lot of translations could be misunderstood, but when they say that they have realized the Honeybee Inn to now be a pantheon of entertainment, that seems like it's going to be a very big, important location in the game. That description leads me to believe that for entertainment purposes, this may be our new hub for Chocobo racing in this Part 1 release. In those screenshots, we also got the reveal of the Mog and Chocobo summon, so Chocobos are definitely in the game, so why not have Chocobo racing at the pantheon of entertainment, the Honeybee Inn? It just makes too much sense. And with them saying that about the Honeybee Inn, that also leads me to believe that the Wall Market is also going to be huge and fleshed out. And that's just even better news. The last thing that I'm going to bring up about this blog post isn't a quote, it's just a section of the interview that I really think that you should read. When you're reading all of these interviews in this blog post, the one that stood out to me the most was Naoki Hamaguchi. And that's not because he dropped some big bombshell or it's some big leak about the game. The reason why this interview is one of the best ones in the article is because it's an awesome success story about how a fan of a video game eventually is now working on the remake and how he feels like it's just fate. And I'm sorry to get sentimental, but that's fucking awesome. Really though, as a consumer, this should tell you that this product is in the best hands it could be in. We are all fans of something and we know how much it would mean to us if we got to work on that. So I hope you thought that that was as interesting as I did. I really wanted to start breaking down some of the screenshots today, but really most importantly, there's a couple screenshots that need to be pointed out that were released today. One shows us that we can now level up Cloud's Buster Sword and his other swords, which is awesome, also confirming that we have the Nail Bat from the original game, as well as some other new swords. Another one confirming that Mog and Chocobo are going to be in this game and they look better than ever. And finally, it seems like from the menu selection that classic mode will also be the same as easy mode. I don't know how to take that. Take that as you will. I wasn't going to be playing the game probably on classic mode anyway. I was hoping that classic mode would actually translate to something harder maybe, or maybe I would have options for classic mode. So maybe that's something that they put in later in the game. But right now it seems like classic mode will be the same difficulty as easy mode, which, like I said, I was never going to play anyway. So I hope you liked the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about all of this crazy news. Maybe let me know what your favorite screenshot is, and everybody have a good day. GBW out.